Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story number 1, Space Boogaloo, written by Poseidon ____. I laughed. Each morsel of the news broadcast brought greater and greater joy to my soul. Following the landmark power exchange in the Terran government, the newly established Lizral leaders have begun to implement radical changes to the Constitution. Just this morning, a bill was introduced into Galactic Senate that would immediately criminalize the billions of humans owning plasma-style weapons. The Lizral leadership stated that more changes will follow, and any humans that try to block the bill will quickly find the locks on their closet doors are not as secure as they thought. As of 2:54 Standard Galactic Time, all owners of plasma-style weapons will be hunted down and given a death penalty by the LPC units. Knock, knock. Who's there? LPC, open up! I put on my tactical goggles and switched the target tracking mode. The reptilians wouldn't capture me, dead or alive. No, I replied, as I finally hit the shiny red button installed in so many years before. Boogaloo 3, Defense System. No klaxon sounded, but I knew the system was activated. 3 targets on the doorstep, 1 ancient claymore, 0 targets on the doorstep. Now, to prepare. Although officially I only owned 1 plasma pistol, gotten legitimately and legally. It was the only one. Gotten legitimately and legally, that is. I opened the safe and pulled out 3 more plasma rifles, 1 with a scope, the second with a small 3rd hole drilled into it, along with another modifications, and another configured to vaporize my target. Also illegal. I pulled out some capacitors that I had modified to increase the max energy storage, along with an archaic but effective RPG. With the LPC units now in pieces on my doorstep, the metal gates began to slide down my windows, and the mines throughout my lawn armed themselves. Buying that 100 pack of pre-FTL claymores really was a smart decision. I then closed my safe, spun the dial, scrambled the password, put the key back underneath the floorboard. I bounced as I made my way to my other safe, in the underground bunker that I'd been building for years in secret. Crappy HOAs, feck off my property. If I want to create uranium processing lab underneath my house, I'll do it, whether it's illegal or not. As I opened my second safe, I heard the sirens getting closer. Guess those LPC officers missed their check-in. I pulled out a small briefcase, strapped it to my person, and bolted back upstairs so I wouldn't miss any action. I turned my goggles to show the HUD of the cameras hidden all across my property, and watched with glee as the first hovercar hit a claymore and flipped over. They should have brought a tank, but even that probably wouldn't be enough for my overkill. The next hovercar wisened up, and the officers jetted straight to my front door. Of course, this was still a mistake. I was already out of the house, popping up near my fence as I trained my scope plasma rifle on the LPC front, running across their backs. Life has many doors, fat boy. I quickly burned holes through their chests before turning back into my tunnel to utilize my other goodies stashed around my property. I had to use them all before I played my trump card, the ultimate feck you to the HOA. I popped up on my roof, or rather in my roof. A very small cubby hole, not unlike an arrow slots in the medieval castles, still standing on Earth, allowed me to survey the drive up to my house. As it was, the only method of approach unless they fancy creating a new one with a minesweeper. I opted to switch to my slightly modified, much more fun, and highly illegal plasma rifle. With a drill here and a part replacement there, I had converted the standard high-powered modern-day weapon into a fully automatic high-powered modern-day weapon. Sure enough, a whole platoon showed up shortly with full riot gear on. Wouldn't matter. I started spraying, and whichever lizards weren't on the ground clutching their melting scales were too busy taking off melting body armor to notice the incoming mail bomb launched by automated defenses. I switched back to my scoped rifle and picked off the stragglers who hadn't died yet. For all the fear surrounding them, the LPC didn't seem to be changing their tactics. Finally, the hovercopter showed up, giddy with excitement. I picked up my RPG. I'd never used it on anything except space rocks, so it was time to see what this baby would do. I took aim, fired, and saw the fear dawn on the lizard's eyes before this vehicle erupted into flame and spiraled onto my lawn below. A secondary explosion created a deafening blast as the claymores went off upon the copter's impact. The twisted heap of metal that used to be a hovercopter went flying out of the minefield, safely landing in a covert running by the road. 2 more units in riot gear wearing LPC showed up, and just as dumb as the last one, I snatched my third, still unused plasma rifle and took aim. Outside of my effective range, I sighted the vans instead of the units, seeing that the hover vans melt as they stepped out. The lizards immediately took cover in the culvert where the hovercopter landed just a few minutes prior. Unfortunately for them, I'd taken precautions. I activated the megatoaster, as I liked to call it, and gave them all a nasty shock. Then I released a couple gallons of bleach and ammonia, and the rest of them keeled over after a few minutes. I guess at this point, I'm now a war criminal. But frankly, chlorine gas is a couple steps below my last resort, which it would soon be time to use. If I was right about how many lizards would show up in the next wave of my own personal Zerg rush, I exited the crawl space and went back to my bunker. On the way, I unhooked my briefcase and stashed it under the stairs. The lizards wouldn't know what was coming to them. Safe in my bunker, I watched the next round of LPC show up on the HUD of my goggles. 10 riot squads, 5 hovercopters, and the biggest prize of them all, 3 full tanks. I made the big leagues. Well, I had my fun, but it was time to bug out and go join my local Boogaloo cell. The time had come to blast off. I initiated the countdown and then put the automatic defense system on last resort mode. Immediately, the number of turrets tripled and began shooting at anything that moved. With the LPC distracted by that, I shot up and away from my house, getting one last look at the place that I called home and trusted to protect me. One last look before she was gone forever. As the ground receded rapidly, I saw the last of my turrets taken out and all units converging on my house. Ethan's smile spread across my face as I fished out a small plastic stick from my pocket. I uncapped it and pressed the second red button of the day. Then I watched as 10 riot squads, 5 hovercopters, and 3 tanks were vaporized in nuclear hellfire. I didn't feel bad in the slightest for causing my HOA to be responsible for radiation and a giant crater. Poor lizards. Their definition of overkill is my idea of a day at the range. And they never even stood a chance. Once again, I smiled as I saw the mushroom cloud expand from above, knowing that the Boogaloo was just beginning. My mission complete, I docked with my ship in orbit and sped away, contemplating all the future war crimes I've yet to commit. End of story. Story number 2. So, you're afraid of the dark. Written by Zelkos. So, you're afraid of the dark. It's alright. It's okay. It's a natural kind of thing. There's scary stuff in the dark, right? Right. Some adults get scared too, you know. Some get it real bad. Some get a condition called paranoia. It's a certain feeling that takes that part of you that's scared and kind of loops it over and over. Some people really struggle with it. But in this case, being afraid of the dark, of monsters in your closet, totally natural reaction to dark spaces. We're all kind of wired to look for bad things in the dark, because that's where most of the bad things have to attack us. Because, you know what? I'm going to tell you a secret. There's not really a secret. It's just something people don't say out loud much. You're human, what? You knew that, What do you mean? Of course you knew that. Who's going around telling all my secrets? Is it you? It's you, isn't it? Okay, fine. I know you knew that. How did you get so smart? But really, what I just told you, that's a powerful thing. Did you know that? Because it is. You're a human. And I'm also human, sleeping just down the hall from you. And if you go outside, there's a bunch more humans, almost 7 billion of them. I'd be scared of trying to fight just 7 people. Now, I doubt 7 billion people are going to fit in your tiny little room to help you fight a monster. That's like way too many people. Way too many, right? But out of the 7 billion, or even 100,000, I bet 1 or 2 would take your monster seriously. And 1 or 2 here, plus 1 or 2 there. That number gets big real quick. In fact, there's probably 1 million people who would try and fight that monster for you. 1 million! That's like a whole army. Would you fight an army by yourself? I wouldn't. And that's the biggest secret. You're a human. Do birds fly near you when you make a noise? No, they flap away, right? Bugs run away. Sometimes bears run away. Do wild animals come towards us, or do they run away? Exactly. You're human. There are so many of us that have already fought all the scary things already. So much so that your monster, it's scared of you. Sleep tight. Now don't worry about the monster. I am much bigger human than you are. And if it tries anything, I'm going to come back in here. And I am going to be angry. End of story. The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I just quickly want to thank the Tier 5 patrons and channel members: Alithia Barkey, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Albarden Guster, Arcadian, Lord Azrakal, and Joachim Backer.